I've got this cute little project for you to make, just for the fun of it. These hairbrains are very quick and easy to make. They use very little yarn, and since they're made all in one piece, you don't have to sew them together. I will be going over all the steps required to make these in a very beginner-friendly way in just a moment. For each hairbrain, you will need a small amount of a 1-weight cotton yarn in 2 colors, one for the head and one for the hair. You will also need a US size D or 3.25 millimeter hook, some polyfill or other material to use for stuffing, a stitch marker, a yarn needle, a row counter, and scissors. So let's get going. With the yarn that you would like to use for the head, let's attach the yarn to the hook with a slip knot. And I would also like to mention that for this tutorial, I'm using a thicker yarn and a bigger hook than what I told you to use earlier, just so that you can see a little bit easier what's going on. And let's have a quick preview of what will be going on here. We are going to start at the bottom of the head, and we're going to work in spiral rounds in single crochet. We will be making increases on each round so that each round becomes a little bit bigger than the one before. And we do that until we reach the full head circumference. That's a lot to take in, so let's break things down one at a time with the first round. Now for round 1, start with chain 2. And now work a single crochet into the top loop of the slip knot. So skip that last chain. Just go into that top loop of the slip knot with a single crochet. Next, use a stitch marker to mark that stitch we've just made. That also marks the beginning of the round, and that'll be very important, so don't forget to do that. Okay, let's continue round 1 with 5 more single crochets all into that same place in the slip knot. Now, there's a good chance that the slip knot has stretched, and don't worry about that, it's okay, because we can always pull on that short thread to tighten it back up again, and later when you weave that in, you can secure that hole in the middle a little bit better. Okay, so that's round 1. Basically 6 single crochets worked into the slip knot. So something very important to do in this project is whenever we come back to the stitch marker, I'd like you to click the row counter. So that should have been on row 1 to show that we've just worked row 1. So we've got to the stitch marker, let's click, because now we're ready to start round 2. Okay, so for round 2, what we do is we take the stitch marker off, but just remember where it was, because that's where we go back in with another single crochet stitch. So that's the first stitch of round 2, and because it's the first stitch, we've got to mark it. Okay, so for round 2 here, we've got a kind of a different pattern to do with our single crochets. Now we've done the first one in the next stitch, and what we now need to do is make another one in that same stitch. So we've got 2 single crochets in the same stitch, the one that used to be marked. Now when we make 2 stitches in one stitch like this, that's called an increase. And we will be working an increase in every stitch of this round. So let's go ahead and do that. In the next stitch, we've got an increase, so that of course that means work 2 single crochets in that same stitch. Increase in the next. And so on until you get to this last stitch before the stitch marker. So just ready to do the last increase. And that is round 2 finished. So let's remember our routine. When we get back to the stitch marker, advance your row counter to show we're about to start round 3. And from now on, this will also be part of the routine at the beginning of a round. So just remove the stitch marker, make a single crochet where the stitch marker just was, and mark that next stitch. I'm just going to change the color of my stitch marker so you can see it a bit better. There we go. Alright, so that's set up the beginning of the round. Okay, so for round 3, we've got a different arrangement of single crochets here. So we start with just 1 single crochet in the first stitch, and then we do an increase in the next. So in the second stitch of the round, do an increase. In the next stitch, we just do a single crochet and then an increase. So that's the pattern. Single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase. We're basically doing an increase in every other stitch. So there is just the single crochet. I'll do the increase here. Again, single crochet in the next stitch, increase in the next stitch. So just continue that again until you get to this last stitch before the stitch marker. And I'm just getting to the last stitch where I've meant to do an increase. That's a good way to check. If your last stitch in the pattern is an increase, then you've done the right number of stitches. Okay, so that's round 3 done. Oops, we've hit the stitch marker again, so let's go to the next round, which is round 4, and same deal. Take off the stitch marker, work a stitch in the next stitch, put the stitch marker back on. Okay, so round 4, as you guessed it, has a new pattern. And that is, instead of just 1 single crochet, we work 2 single crochets and then an increase. So we've done the first one. Let's do a second single crochet and then an increase in the next stitch. So increasing in every 3rd stitch, or just think about doing 2 single crochets and then increase. Alright, and again continue around, and hopefully you have an increase in the stitch before the stitch marker. Yep, I've got my last stitch to do, and it is an increase, so I've done that all right. Okay. All right, we've hit the stitch marker. Click. Ready for round 5. Follow our routine. Remove marker. Make the next stitch. Replace marker. All right, and you can probably guess the pattern for round 5. We've got 3 single crochets before an increase. Now we've done the first, do the second, and the third, and now increase. Okay, single crochet, second single crochet, third single crochet, increase. Etc. until again you get to the last stitch of the round. Okay, I'm at the end of round 5, ready for round 6. And again a routine of remove, make the next stitch, and replace the stitch marker. And now things get a little bit easier. For rounds 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all worked exactly the same. And all you have to do is put 1 single crochet in each stitch. So when we're just putting 1 stitch into 1 stitch, we're working even. So if I say we're working even, that's all that means. It's just work 1 single crochet in each stitch. And work your way around to the stitch marker again. There we go. There's our routine. Click, remove, next stitch, and replace the stitch marker. So just repeat that until the row counter shows for round 10. Round 10 will be different. Finish. Click, around 10, remove, next stitch, and replace. So things should look like a little bowl at the moment. And we're about to start round 10, which is the round where we put on the arms and hands and the nose. So we've already got the first stitch of round 10. Let's do a couple more. And time to do the first arm and hand. So to do an arm, start off by doing chain 6. And skip a chain and come back down and work a single crochet in that second chain from the hook. And when you go in, try to grab the top 2 loops just to make that stitch a little bit more stable. And now let's do the first finger. So to do a finger, start with chain 3. And now we're going to come back down the chain with some slip stitches. So skip the first one, come to the second chain, grab that top loop and do a slip stitch. Same thing in the next chain. And then we've got one more slip stitch to do, and that's going to go in these two loops here that are kind of on top of that single crochet we've just made. And just insert underneath those two. Draw through a loop and pull it on through. And there's our first finger. Oh, let's make another one. Again, chain 3, skip a chain, come to the next, do a slip stitch through that top loop, another slip stitch in the next chain, and now slip stitch where we did before. And there already might be a kind of a little bit of a hole starting to happen there, which makes it easy to find each time. Alright, let's do one more finger. Of course, you can have as many fingers as you want. I might just put 3 on this little guy just to save time. But however many fingers you do, they're all done exactly the same way. Okay, so that's my third finger. I'll stop there. My other simples had 5, but you do what you like. Okay, so now let's pay attention to the arm. And what we need to do now is make sure these chain stitches are not twisted. They might have got a little bit twisted, but in any case, you want to be able to see all the V's. So I'll just hang on there and make sure they all stay put. Okay, so, and now we just do slip stitches in the top of these chains, just like we did for the fingers. So find that first one, go in the top loop. Sometimes this one can be a little bit stubborn. There we go. And there's the first one, and just work your way on down. 2, 3, 4, and the 5th one there. And let's finish up with one more slip stitch in these 2 loops here that are on front of that single crochet that we did on the round. That just kind of finishes off the arm for us. There's our first arm and hand done. Okay, let's head on over to the nose. And to do that, just do 7 more single crochets, 1 in each stitch. And for the nose, we're going to do a popcorn stitch. Now, to do a popcorn stitch, you start off, this time we're doing 5 double crochets into the next stitch. You're going to cram all 5 in that same stitch. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and to finish off a popcorn stitch, what you do is just kind of pull up a little bit, take the hook out, be careful you don't unravel anything, that's the scary part, and now come back and we're going to pick up this V that is just after that single crochet. So let's just get the hook back in there, come behind, grab that loop, tighten it up and pull it through, and you can see how, just give a tug and that gathers the top all together there to make our nose. Okay, let's keep going. Let's work our way to the other arm, and to do that we need to make 8 single crochets this time. And then this arm is exactly like the first one. 6 chain, single crochet in the second chain from the hook. First finger starts with 3 chains, skip a chain, 2 slip stitches, and the slip stitch in the front loops. Another finger starts with chain 3, slip stitch in the next 2 stitches, slip stitch in the single crochet, rinse and repeat. Now straighten up the connecting chain and slip stitch on back down through these 5 chains, just like we did before. And slip stitch in the single crochet. There we go. Now we've got the nose and both arms and hands done. That was the exciting part. And to finish this round, just work even back to the stitch marker. There we go. That's the end of round 10. Let's click to start round 11. Remove the stitch marker. Next stitch. Replace. Now round 11, it's another round where we're going to be working even, but because we've got obstacles, it might be a little bit difficult to see some of the stitches, so let's go through that now. So the next stitch is pretty obvious, but where we did the arm, I can see there's a stitch here just before the arm. Let's go in there. And now the next stitch is over here. But we need to make sure we flip that arm forward as we work this stitch. We're kind of working the stitch behind the arm just to keep the arm on the outside of the body or head or whatever. Okay, let's carry on. Now getting to the nose. It's a little bit easier because there are V's there to go into, although they might be kind of stretched out or turned to the inside a little bit. But they're fairly easy to find there. So there we go. We've made it past the nose, heading towards the other arm. Okay, so there's the next stitch. The next one's kind of on the other side of the arm. Let's shove that out of the way. There we go. And finish the round evenly. Just work back to the stitch marker. Oh, round 11 done. Let's click for round 12. Remove, next stitch, and replace. Now, round 12, we've got a new pattern to follow. If you remember in the beginning, we worked increases to make the bottom wider or bigger. Now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to work decreases to make the top of the head. So we're going to go back inwards, make things smaller. Alright, so the pattern is, well, we started with the first stitch of the pattern, work 2 more single crochets, And now we're going to do a decrease. We can also call this a single crochet two together. To do that, put your hook in the next stitch, draw through a loop, go in the next stitch, draw up another loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on the hook, and that is a decrease. Alright, so for the rest of the round, the pattern is 3 single crochets, and then a decrease. Now we just repeat that until you get back to the stitch marker. And at the end of the row, or round, the last 2 stitches should be a decrease stitch. So if you've got those 2 stitches available to do a decrease, then everything is okay. All right, round 13, remove, stitch, replace, and this time the pattern is just 2 single crochets, then decrease. We've already done the first. Let's do the second one. And now decrease. Two single crochets. Here's 1, 2, and decrease. Okay, and all the way around. Click, and now we're actually finished with the head, so we don't really need this stitch marker anymore, but let's finish off with just one more stitch, which will be a slip stitch here, just to kind of, I don't know, close things off a bit, and we can fasten off the yarn. There we go. Now the yarn tail at the very beginning, now is the time to secure that. So give it another tug, and let's go ahead and weave that in now, because we're going to put the stuffing in soon, and that will be hard to get at. There we go. I think we'll be okay. Give it a little trim. That'll be hidden inside, so if there's a little piece of that sticking out, that's okay. And actually, we can just kind of trim off this yarn tail as well. We'll make sure it gets tucked down inside. It won't show, so we can hide that when we finish off a bit later on. Okay, so let's give this little guy his hairdo. Switch over to the color you want for the hair, and let's attach it to the hook with a slip knot. And coming back to the head, you can really start anywhere. I'll just start here, draw through a loop and do a single crochet, and that has attached the yarn to our project. And for this entire round, the pattern is slip stitch, which we've just done, and then 12 chains. Come back to the same stitch as the last slip or single crochet, do another single crochet in that same stitch. So there we have single crochet, chain 12, single crochet in the same stitch. Do another chain 12 and move on to the next stitch and do a single crochet. Chain 12, single crochet in the same stitch. Now that is the pattern all the way around. If you think of doing chain 12 between each single crochet, and you're doing 2 single crochets in each stitch, that might help you make sense. In any case, I've just done a single crochet, so I've got to do chain 12, and if I already have 2 stitches in that stitch, that's time to move on. That's another way to look at it. It's just single crochet, chain 12, single crochet, chain 12, and just make sure you're getting 2 single crochets in each stitch. And then just work his hairdo all the way around. And if you can find it, slip stitch into the beginning, which is kind of going to be where that slip knot was, just to end the row. And finish off the yarn here. We're done with the hair. And I'm also going to kind of trim these yarn tails off. I don't really think they need to be sewn in. They'll be hidden in the hair. And we're almost done. Next thing to do is to get your stuffing and get that stuffed in really good. And then we just need to then cinch everything together. So just grab another piece of yarn, whichever, it doesn't matter if it's head color or hair color, and get that onto your yarn needle, and again just find a place and just weave in and out kind of between the head and the hair. Just go in and out. Don't have to be too particular. Leave a tail about like that at the beginning, and just weave in all the way around. There we go, back at the beginning. Take the yarn needle off, give a good pull of both of those tails. Make sure the stuffing stays in, and draw everything together nice and tight. Tie a knot. I like to do an overhand kind of knot because it's a very secure kind of knot. There we go. You can take these yarn tails and just hide them inside the body instead of really weaving them in. Just thread it up and go in the guts and come out somewhere down here. Trim it, and that's hidden it, so I won't do that for the other one, just for this demo. Again, that's our little secret. And okay, so there we go. Now there's lots to learn in this project, and at the end of it you've got these cute little creatures. I suppose the kids will love, or the young at heart. Let me know how you go. I'd love to see what you make. I've got lots more projects coming up, so I hope to see you again soon.